Hi, I'm Annie, and this is my channel Omninonymous. This is part 2 of our thought experiment on how to get, we're pretending that the Great Pyramid of Giza is a quantum computer, and the challenge is to get the Great Pyramid to generate enough electricity to operate a quantum computer. And we're doing this without adding anything to the pyramid. We're just using the construction of the pyramid itself and some possible environmental parameters around the pyramid. But yeah, this is just a silly thought experiment. But here we go with my idea of how this could work. I call it my hypothesis, but I've come to this hypothesis working with other people's hypotheses. And this is everyone's and no one's at this point. So, it takes quite a bit of science to follow what's going on here. Several fields of science, but I will do my best to explain this in just a few minutes. So, in the atmosphere, all over our planet, there's something called Schumann resonance. And Schumann resonance is an electromagnetic excitation in the Earth's electromagnetic field, and it's of the extra low frequency. So radio waves are in that category. And it's up there all the time. It's caused by planetary lightning strikes, so it doesn't matter day or night. It does not really... it has fluctuations in frequency, but the magnitude sort of stays the same. And it's constant. It's always there. It's called Schumann resonance. And it's been demonstrated by a group of international physicists that the shape of the pyramid itself acts as a prism for extra low frequency electromagnetic radiation, radio waves in that category. So my hypothesis is that there's enough leakage that comes, enough leakage of that standing wave of extra low frequency electromagnetic radiation that reaches this pyramid. It's a very ginormous pyramid, and the shape of it likes to capture the radio waves, and what that does is it acts as a prism for them and points them downward to under the pyramid. So what that causes is a constant bombardment of radio waves going down under the pyramid. And when you bombard something with radio waves, what happens is it acts a lot like microwaves, and it's going to heat up the ground under the pyramid. It's just a lot less efficient than microwaves, so we don't use it for that purpose. But this is a very large structure. It's focusing a lot of radio waves downward constantly, and so what it's going to do is actually heat the groundwater under the pyramid. And it's a little counterintuitive, but there's actually quite a bit of groundwater under the Giza Plateau because it's right by the Nile River. So the effect that that's going to have is it's going to cause water vapor to come up into the pyramid and saturate the porous limestone that makes up the core stones of the pyramid. So what's that going to do? That's going to encounter, so you have this heated water vapor coming up through the chambers of the pyramid. And since you have these empty cavities versus porous rock, the empty cavities are kind of going to attract the water vapor just due to the lack of pressure. It's going to go towards the low pressure zones. And so you're going to have this heated water vapor traveling up through the pyramid. And I hypothesize that's why that structure in the subterranean chamber is so eroded looking, is the amount of heated water vapor that it has encountered. Could be many other possible reasons, but it's interesting that there's such a decayed looking structure in the very basement, like the most protected location in the pyramid, you would think. Okay, so you got this heated water vapor traveling up, and then it's going to encounter the refined powder sand found behind the walls. And this is going to release chemicals into the water vapor. And those chemicals Again, they're going to travel upward. Heat likes to go upward, and this is heated water vapor. And then it's going to be attracted to the empty cavities or low pressure zones, and it'll build up in there. And what that's going to allow, and there has been chemical residues found in the shafts of the middle chamber. One chemical in one shaft, a different chemical in the other shaft. The chemicals aren't entirely agreed upon. In the description of this video, I'm going to leave a lot of links to the science that I've come across to come to this hypothesis. So I will leave a link to the chemical analyses and disagreement thereof of the chemical residues in these shafts. But it appears one chemical is in one shaft, a different chemicals in another shaft, and these shafts are capped off by a blocking stone, and the blocking stone has 2 metal nodes per shaft. Right now, the metals are identified as copper, but it is possible there could have been zinc involved. So if one was copper, had one with copper metal nodes and one with zinc metal nodes, you have this crazy recipe for a fluidic battery happening right in the Great Pyramid. Sealed in there. All the ingredients are there for a giant fluid battery. And if you had these being a giant fluid battery, so the metal nodes would actually be diodes or anodes and cathodes, depending on the metal and the charges on the metal. What would happen then when you have a fluid battery of this nature is you get something called a salt bridge. In between the two from the chemical reaction, you'll get salt buildup. Interesting thing, the middle chamber had a thick layer of salt in it when modern humans broke into it. The salt was scraped off. There are some chemical analyses of the salt, which again I'll post in the links below. Okay, so you have this weird fluid battery. So what's that doing? The setup of it, since you have water vapor all throughout this region of the pyramid, remember the water vapor is coming up from the groundwater and it's constantly being replenished. So you are having water vapor escape the pyramid. Limestone's rather porous rock. It's not going to hold it in there like a sealed container, but it's constantly being replenished. So you have plenty of water vapor in here, and you have this battery operating. So the battery is going to electrically charge the water vapor, and when you have an electrical charge encounter a granite block, granite does this crazy thing. It's called a piezoelectric rock. And when you shock it and you put electricity in with the electrified water vapor, you're actually going to get the granite to jiggle. You're going to get it to vibrate. So you have these 3 blocking stones of granite that are encountering this electrified water vapor. So these are going to be vibrating granite stones. And it's not going to be a pleasant vibration. It's going to be really loud and obnoxious. And then that sound would travel up the ascending passage. And remember that the horizontal hallway was sealed off. So that would help with the sound traveling purely up this ascending passage. You wouldn't be losing very much sound down that hallway. And then it would reach the Grand Gallery. And the Grand Gallery has that giant corbelled roof. And the corbelled roof has been noted by many people that have visited the pyramid is amazing at amplifying sound. So the sound of the vibrating granite would be traveling up and being amplified. And then that amplified sound of the vibrating granite would reach this entire granite room. And if you know stuff about material physics and acoustical physics, if you have that sort of sound made by a similar material, you're going to end up resonating all of this granite in this granite room. It's just going to start vibrating as well from that specific frequency of sound that's caused by vibrating granite is going to be amazing at vibrating granite itself. So granite, again, is a piezoelectric rock. And when you vibrate a piezoelectric rock, you're going to get electricity out. So you put electricity in, you get vibration out. You put vibration in, you get electricity out. So this whole chamber is going to be vibrating. And it's going to be a free resonator. It's not linked into the stones of the casing stones around it. It's sort of a floating room of granite, which is an interesting feature, which I unfortunately don't think I mentioned in the first part, but it is. It's a floating room of granite, not linked in. And so when you have a piezoelectric material, in order to harvest the electricity from it, you have to have what's called a positive hole. And what a positive hole is actually just a positively charged something to attract all of the negatively charged electrons that are trying to escape the piezoelectric material. So it needs to be attracted to a positive charge. And that's where the capstone comes in, being a metallic stone, a golden color. It could be gold, it could be copper, it could be the alloy electrum that's a gold, copper, or silver alloy. All of those things are positively charged. So the electricity from all of this vibrating piezoelectric granite would travel up the pyramid and get to the capstone. And the capstone could charge the air around it, the humid air, because it's right next to the Nile River, so it's rather humid air. And it could make an ionized humid atmosphere, which you could then use for wireless energy. That was demonstrated recently by an atmospheric science group who was doing atmospheric tests, and they actually forgot to plug in their data taking equipment, and then the equipment took data anyway because of the humidity in the atmosphere actually had charge enough to power their data taking equipment. So it was somewhat of an accident, but they clearly demonstrated that you can have wireless energy travel through the atmosphere under the right conditions. So this would cause the conditions to allow, because it's also heating water vapor and releasing it in a cloud around the pyramid. So this would enable the conditions that would allow for wireless transfer of electrical power. But this is a quantum computer, so we're trying to power the quantum computer as well. And yeah, so that's how my hypothesis works. So I guess I'll run through it really quick again. There's radio waves in the atmosphere. The shape of the pyramid captures the radio waves, acts as a prism, points the radio waves downward. The bombardment of radio waves in the groundwater in the bedrock under the pyramid creates water vapor, which travels up and releases chemicals out of the sand that is behind the walls in the pyramid. This released chemicals from the sand has the chemical composition necessary to create a fluidic battery. Yeah, it's just a total coincidence that there's all the ingredients to make a fluidic battery sealed into the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yeah, this is just a hypothesis. And so those metal nodes act as the diodes, and this chemical fluid battery electrifies the water vapor itself. The electrified water vapor causes the piezoelectric granite blocks to vibrate. The vibration sound travels up through the grand gallery where it gets amplified, and then the sound hits the granite chambers where it resonates the granite, and then you vibrate a piezoelectric material, and that causes electricity to come off, and the electricity is attracted to the positively charged capstone, and that's your power cycle. I hypothesized that the vents in the coming off of the granite chamber are just that. They are vents to control the density of the air and release that water vapor, allowing for the granite chamber to vibrate more efficiently. And I believe that the empty chamber above the doorway I hypothesize is just a kind of a tuning resonation chamber to help with the amplification of sound. I also hypothesize that this extra granite block down in the grotto that does have a direct link to the Grand Gallery as well is also for resonance and sound transfer to amplify that sound and get this giant granite chamber to resonate most efficiently with the highest amplitude, giving off the highest amplitude of electricity possible. So that's all optimization parameters to get this optimized and the most efficient power production possible. There are a few other parameters in the Great Pyramid, such as the quantity pi is built in to the pyramid. So like the height versus circumference ratio is like a circle, and it'll give you pi if you write an equation for it. I believe these sorts of things are just optimization parameters, since you're harvesting radio waves from a spherical source. Having the quantity pi built right into the geometry of your structure will help optimize the power output. But yeah, thanks for joining me. I hope maybe that gives you guys something to start your ideas with. I've included a lot of links below that might help and explain the science that I have represented here a bit further. So join me for part 3, and I will discuss how could the Great Pyramid of Giza possibly resemble a quantum computer. Because that's the ultimate thing. That's why it's generating power. We're pretending it's going to turn on a quantum computer. So thanks so much for playing along, and thanks for watching. And if you might feel so inclined, please like and subscribe. Yeah, have a great day. Bye.